Welcome to Hubbly's Fireside Chat on how to make onboarding clients fun. Today, we are excited to hear from Justin, the founder of Wealth Mode Financial Planning. Welcome, Justin. And he will be doing a fireside chat with Louis, the CEO and co-founder of Hubbly. So Justin, he is a fee-only financial planner, and he helps other young professionals and families live their best financial lives. He is currently living in Utah and just had a baby as well. So congratulations, Justin. And he works virtually with clients across the country. So Justin has been featured as well in some really well-known news outlets such as Forbes and the Huffington Post. Chatting with him today is Louis. So Louis has been involved in the fintech community for 5 years, working with 2 startups in that time. He's co-founded Hubbly after working in the robo-advisory space, where he grew a passion for helping advisors improve the efficiencies of how they serve their clients. And so today we actually asked Justin to be here with us because he was one of Hubbly's first ever customers. But there is a bit of a backstory behind how Justin originally got involved with Hubbly. It started about 2 years ago, before Hubbly was even a thing. And Louis reached out to Justin via cold email and cold call. And we actually managed to dig up the email. And this was Louis' first email to Justin. And we also were able to dig up Justin's response. So as you can see, Justin wasn't too excited about Hubbly at first. To be fair, Hubbly didn't even exist yet. So I don't know what happened, whether Louis was extremely charming or extremely annoying, because after following up with Justin, he eventually managed to get him to agree to jump on a call with him on a Saturday morning for 30 minutes to chat about a product which didn't even exist yet. So it was during this call that Louis and Justin finally connected. And about 6 months after this initial phone call, Louis came back to Justin for about the 100th time. But this time he actually had something. So he came back with a product that looked like this. So this was Hubbly's first product. Justin, let this sink in, that you willingly signed up for something that looked like this. So luckily for Justin, Hubbly has come a long way since then. So this is what Hubbly now looks like. And Hubbly has grown to service over 200 customers, has helped create over 16,000 workflows, and has helped financial advisors service over 60,000 clients. And in that time, Justin's business has also grown. So Justin, you have quadrupled your number of clients. You've also grown from a team of just 1 to a team of 3, and you've been able to outsource the work that you've needed using Hubbly workflows, which is great. So enough for me. We have Justin and Louis here themselves today to chat with you. So I'm sure you're all excited to learn how Justin grew his business and how he utilized Hubbly workflows to help grow his client services. So without further ado, welcome Justin and Louis.
Awesome. Thank you, Tessa. Such a heartfelt story. And I know we've had a really long relationship, Justin, and really thankful for everything you've done for Hubbly, obviously, since the early days and how far we've come. So curious, though, I know we've known each other quite well for the last 2 years, but can you tell the audience a little bit about your background? Who was Justin before Wealth Mode? And give us a little bit of color on that, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, you bet. And I first owe you, I think, like a public apology in front of all these people. I didn't realize I was so cold at the very beginning. I'm sure I was just very, very busy. I try to think about where my life was at the time. And I guess life's always busy and stresses you out. So I am glad that I've ended up where I have, though, despite my initial cold shoulder response to you. So yeah, my background, just put it in a nutshell, before I started my practice, I'm 30 years old, so I'm a younger planner. And I think I've noticed a lot of the differences between people in this industry about my age and younger versus people older than me. And that's that I'm on this like leading edge of a generation of planners who actually studied financial planning in college, right? That hasn't been the traditional route historically, to actually study financial planning at the university setting as like, the educational foundation before you enter a career, like a lot of other professions or industries. So I actually did major in personal finance And then there was a family finance and a financial planning program at my university, Utah State, in Logan, Utah. And I started out in the what we might call the financial counseling or coaching world. So my first job out of college was working in a nonprofit setting, and I was helping a lot of people financially rehabilitate, if you will, from the effects of the Great Recession. So even though this was 4 or 5 years after all of that went down in 07, 08, there's people who had bankruptcy, foreclosures, lost their jobs, all their wealth, they were starting back over. And so I was working with people like that. That was an awesome experience. I guess from there, I was taking the AFC exam. I'm an accredited financial counselor. It's a designation in that world. The CFP exam as well, and was desperately looking for a financial planning job because I knew I wanted to transition that way, but just wasn't feeling like I was finding a setting where I felt like it could be done the way I felt like it should. That felt sincere and authentic, and also where I could serve my peers. Right. I think that back in 2014, we have, I guess, a lot of advisors starting to serve different demographics and different portions of the income and wealth spectrum, if you will. But back then it was like no one's out there doing this. So I guess if I want to serve who I want to serve, I've got to do my own thing. And so I got a paraplanning contracting gig part-time in addition to my full-time job as a financial counselor. And then also slowly started planning my business, which I started part-time at first as I phased out of my full-time job. And then eventually a couple of years ago, it became my 100% full-time thing. So that's kind of the short version of my path to becoming full-time business owner.
Awesome. And I know I read into your background, obviously, and we've chatted about it before, but you were mainly inspired by actually family members that you said have been in human services orientated professional businesses for quite some period. And so is that where the inspiration came from to be a fee-only planner? I know you've always had this passion for finance, but what has inspired you about the idea of working with people on a one-on-one way and really helping them and coaching them through some of their hardest and most difficult decisions in life?
Yeah, good memory, Louis. That totally is right. I actually entered school initially thinking I was going to be a counselor or therapist. On my father's side, there's all these. My grandpa was a marriage counselor. 3 or 4 of his sons became therapists and social workers and counselors. So I'd heard a lot about their stories and the impact that they had on individual lives. On my mother's side, it's all educators, so they're all teachers. And so I really think at my core, I'm a human services person is what I tell people when I describe really who I am. I'm not really a numbers or an entrepreneur type of person first. Really, Justin at his core, I'm a human services person. So that has heavily influenced the way that I've viewed financial planning from the beginning. I guess what happened was I went to school, started looking down that route and didn't feel right. I got introduced to the personal finance programs that were available at the university. And I thought, hey, here's still something where I deliver services and conversations in a one-on-one setting with people. And what do you know? There's something where you can do that with money. I think I really like that. So that probably came from my father, who, despite coming from a family of counselors and therapists, became a banker. And so he probably infused that numbers and money thing, and I kind of blended all of it into what I chose to do. So yeah.
I love the way you describe that human services orientated professional, because that's really the business I think financial advisors are in. It is very much a service-based industry. And you mentioned the non-for-profit that you started at. I know you were working with low to mid income families there that were really struggling, and that's where you actually were you took on the paraplanner gig, and you really started to get your feet wet with kind of the practice management side of the business. And I know this is also about the same time I actually first emailed you. I remember you were in that transition period of starting to figure out, I think you were working on Wealth Mode part-time and you're still full-time as a paraplanner. And I know you were starting to fiddle with workflows. You were trying to get them working in your CRM. And then this random guy named Louie reached out to you to talk about workflows. What was your perception of workflows at that time? How important they were they in the paraplanning gig that you're working in? What was your kind of thinking around that?
Yeah, totally. Yes. When you reached out, let's see, I was still like, it was like this, I had 3 jobs. I was phasing out of my job at the nonprofit. I picked up several hours contracting as a paraplanner, and then I was building my practice slowly on the side. And so workflows are very much on the mind. And this is where maybe I have to give a little bit of credit to the advisor I was doing work for. I guess I didn't get her permission in advance to say her by name or anything, but I do need to give her a shout out because I think she had invested some level of work when she launched her practice of building out some, I think, a pretty good foundation of workflows. Actually, since then, I've realized how little advisors and lots of colleagues I talk to actually think in a workflow mindset and have like virtually nothing. So really looking back now, she actually did a fantastic job of having a foundation there where when I came into the CRM that she used in her practice and she said, I have some of these workflows here. When we do these kind of work or these kind of jobs for people, I need you to follow these workflows. But since you're going to be mainly doing this, I want you to feel free. And this is where I have to give her credit too, is to open up my hours to not just be directly, the FP work, paraplanning work for our clients, but to say, I am fine with you and I will pay you for any time that you take to refine these workflows, update them, offer suggestions on, she said, this is kind of my first draft since she had just, relatively recently started her practice. She just said, Justin, feel free to change them, especially if it will make you be more consistent in how you do work for me and, keep the quality of the work we do for our clients as high as possible. So because of that, as I worked through workflows for her as a paraplanner, I think I was always thinking in terms of how does this become easier next time I do it? How do I make this more clear for somebody else if they had to follow it too? And at some point she I guess from the beginning she recognized she wasn't going to have me forever. So she said, part of why I want you to do this is whenever you do leave, because your practice has grown and you just need to jump straight to your own business with all your hours, that I can hire somebody else and they're not relearning and restarting all this. And so I think that experience, which I also think, as I've realized over time, is very unique compared to most advisors in this field, is they didn't come into this industry working as a paraplanner first.
Yeah.
And learning the ropes in that kind of way. We look at these other service professions that I think a lot and their corollaries to financial planning and how we develop our jobs as a bona fide profession. People go to schooling for it. They have residencies or fellowships or apprenticeships or something like that where they really shadow and learn things from the ground up. But most people in this industry don't. They start in a sales environment, and maybe the large companies they're working for take care of a lot of this back office stuff, administrative stuff. And then eventually they just hold all of this experience in their head and just kind of do everything without any documented procedures. And so I feel lucky for that opportunity I had as a paraplanner, because it is, I have to credit it a lot to making me the kind of business owner that I am and how I organize my own practice around standard operating procedures, consistent workflows, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I have found over time as I talk with workflows with other colleagues, they're like, where did you learn this stuff? I've never done it like this way. And I think I have to attribute it to having an opportunity working as a paraplanner under someone else, because I see it from the opposite direction, someone having to outsource work to me, right? And it's difficult to get that viewpoint and thinking that way if you don't have that direct experience, I think.
No, it totally makes sense. And I've spoken to hundreds of advisors and I see a lot of the same things. And I think one of the biggest things that I struggle with, and I know a lot of advisors do, is like, what are workflows, right? Workflows is a great buzzword for something. And so curious, how would you define workflows in terms of your business? Like what is a workflow?
Yeah. I think if I was to poke fun at it a little bit, it's a glorified checklist. I guess like a single workflow, I should say, is essentially like a checklist. It's a procedure that you can follow, and at its core, I guess that's what it is. To me, like workflows, as they pertain to when you build out a related set of those checklists or workflows, it becomes it can be. You can make it pretty sophisticated and pretty detailed, and I know it sounds corny, but it makes your work flow. And by that, I mean, when you have a service-based business like I do, and you start to serve a lot of people, you hit a point that you cannot truly hold in your head everybody's lives, all of your clients' individual lives, when specific services or touch points need to happen for all of them throughout the year. When you have a small amount of clients, you can sort of remember that? Oh yeah, when was the last time I met with this person? What was the last thing that we talked about? And when did I say I wanted to meet with them again because they had this and this thing they said was going to be coming up and we needed to have a meeting before that decision happened. When you have maybe a dozen clients or something, you can sort of mentally handle that. But I found myself desperately needing some kind of system to help manage a growing book of clients and how I could deliver a high touch point service to them consistently. And that's where, to me, a workflow system or a software that can integrate these checklists and start them automatically for you, so that it becomes your project manager rather than you always having. I felt like half my job was financial planner and half my job was planning what I needed to do for all the clients. It just felt like, I hire a project manager or have a system that sort of does it for me. And so to me, a workflow is a checklist, but workflows or a workflow system is something, again, a little bit more integrated and something that does has a little bit of a mind of its own to help put those checklists in front of you and say, hey, now it's time to do this.
That's interesting. I totally agree with a lot of the points you make there, and a lot of things we preach to advisors and trying to tell them the importance of workflows is I think it really reduces that cognitive friction of figuring out what to do next, and it really gives you that peace of mind that nothing's falling through the cracks.
Yes.
And that's really what the system is designed to do, is help you sleep better at night. And so, Justin, you had this amazing workflow experience working as a paraplanner. And so I know you started investing heavily in workflows from day one when you started Wealth Mode. What were you hoping was the impact going to be on your business? What was it going to help you achieve? What was your kind of forward-looking thing you were working towards?
Totally. Yeah. Again, I'm grateful for that advisors I was doing paraplanning work for helping me see sort of the magic of building your business off workflows. Cause I'm not sure how I would have been building my business without that example. I think I realized right away, oh my gosh. And she was totally cool that she's like, hey, if you want to use any of these in your practice, cause you're kind of starting and trying to grow this, if there's anything you like, you're welcome to sort of take it. And so I was using at the time the same CRM that she was. And so I remember sort of taking some time to sort of copy and paste into my own system her templates. And I found myself modifying and adjusting them with each time I'd go through it for a new client to, be a little bit more specific to my practice or how I wanted to do things. She laid a good groundwork for that. But I think around the time I was starting to reduce my hours with her and increase the time in my business as I got more and more clients, I guess the concept had latched on in my brain that, I guess to rewind a little bit, I had initially started my practice thinking I never want to hire anybody. It's just going to be me. I don't want to build this really big thing. Some people do. That just wasn't my end goal. But I also thought it was just going to be just me. Don't need anybody else to help support the client base that I want to build. And I think already being at, I don't know what I might have been at the time, 15 or 20 clients, I was thinking like, I still have some mental room to be able to like manage this all on my own, but I am quickly, I'm quickly losing track of everything. And I think I need extra help. And so I realized if I invest a lot in these workflows, and can have that work outsourced to somebody else, I guess that's what's going to enable me to make that transition smoothly when I'm ready for that. And so I thought if I invest a lot of time into building these workflows now, rather than when it feels like the business is on fire, I don't have time to train anybody else on it. It's going to pay long-term dividends for me. And so, yeah, I basically, everything that I started to do in my business, every time I did a new financial plan with a client, I thought, is there something that I did that I can get documented? I can write it down. I can put some instructions on it, and then I maybe can really minimize the manual training I may have to do with a growing team later.
And it's interesting you just touched on like when the fire hits or fire comes, right? Like you were investing for the inevitable. And I think the way we spoke about your workflows is that obviously as a solo practitioner, you had a lot of that time to invest into your workflows. In order to leverage opportunities. And I know when COVID hit, there was an opportunity, one, for your business where you had a massive influx of clients, which actually you needed to actually bring on team members really fast. And so, do you want to talk about how you, when COVID hit, you had this opportunity in your business, it started growing really fast, and how you really leverage these workflows to hire team members and to really plug them into your processes, and I think specifically getting those team members to help with your onboarding processes for new clients.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So yeah, it was early 2020. Everything seemed to be going good, and my client base is growing where I think I'm going to do my first hire in fall of this year. That was my tentative plan. And in fact, I think because I had never had any managerial experience or experience hiring before, I was planning on hiring an intern in the fall semester of 2020. But then COVID hit, and whether it was due to people who were on the fence about working with an advisor finally realizing, hey, I've kept my job, but things feel not very secure right now, and I think I really want a plan in place and talk to somebody to get this advice. Uh, I started having just tons of people reach out to start working in March. Like, it was weird, almost right away. I don't know if all advisors had that experience or not. I think additionally, my niche, which is student loan planning, everybody had here in the States their federal student loan payments suspended. And so I think a lot of them in my particular target market thought, if I don't have to make my student loan payments, maybe I'll invest the money instead in getting some advice around this and working with a planner. And so that may have been a little bit of a lucky stroke. But the onboarding of new clients just surged so quickly that I felt the need to hire almost immediately. So by May, the spring semester for universities was over, I had hired an intern to come in. And I don't think I would have felt comfortable or confident enough to do that if I hadn't invested already in having really good procedures in place where I knew I could put, this is only slightly oversimplifying or exaggerating this, but I almost was able to plug and play this intern into at least some of the administrative workflows and even some of the initial basic financial planning workflows. And I think that was a real test of a couple things. One, the power of a well-designed workflow system for your practice, and two, a good tech product that was easy for a new user to use. So like, I think I've had colleagues be like, I can't believe you hired an intern. Like, they don't know anything, right? Like, I'm kind of scared to do that. Seems like cheap labor. People have a lot of opinions around an intern, and I can't believe you'd hire and invest all that time and money in someone like that, Justin. They're not going to be like a permanent member of your team. Again, I had my reasons for hiring someone I knew would be temporary, but part of it was to be my guinea pig and saying, can I take somebody other than me, plug them into these workflows that I've tried to invest a lot of time into building, and how does it work? And I was really pleased with the experience. Again, this was somebody who was not fully done with their FP schooling yet, had never had a grown-up office job or anything. And I still remember him, having an initial training with Hubly. I didn't actually train him on the workflows. I just trained him on like using Hubly and said, these are the workflows. I want you to give a go at this one and this one and this one and work through them, follow the steps, follow the video instructions and the task details that I've put in there. And I just want to see how you do. And I want you to give me feedback on whether it was easy enough to follow or not. Okay. He came back after trying a couple of things and said, this is awesome. This is really straightforward. It's very natural to use. And I thought, hey, if a 22-year-old, techie college student is saying that they like this product, then, there's something to this. And it was very validating, I think. He was majoring in financial planning. So I remember he actually had a class where he had to try out different tech products in the financial planning world. And he had seen how maybe archaic and, the old design that exists in a lot of our softwares, and just thought, man, I'm entering an industry that has not great tech, was sort of his impression. And he said, this Hubly thing's fresh. And I like, it's very intuitive. And so I thought, hey, if he thinks so too, then there must be something to this. And I am grateful I'd invested that time, because I could take someone with a little training and immediately felt the load lighten for me. This was an intern coming in and immediately following work. I didn't have to do very much training because the workflows did it.
Yeah. And I know you're very Did that elevate your role to focus more on the relationship with a client? How did that change your onboarding experience for you personally, but also for your clients? Do you think this fundamental investment in those workflows actually made a difference where you could offload that work and more focus on the relationship with the client?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So a lot of, I mean, everyone's practice is a little bit different, how they do things, what administrative burden comes with each new client. I know for a lot of people, a lot of the um, time that has to happen is like in the paperwork for transferring accounts and things. If you're a asset manager, I'm not big on that, but I don't do a lot of AUM stuff, but mostly flat fee. But there's still an administrative burden of time that would come with each new client that I felt like I was able to mostly hand off to somebody else right away from, March when COVID hit to May when I hired, where I felt like I actually could onboard clients at a pace faster than if it was by myself. And I think I would have, if I didn't hire, if I hadn't built out these workflows well, I would have had to have a waiting list, which is a good problem to have. But if you can also increase your capacity just to take people on as they come and not have to slow it down, then that's better, right?
And it's something we see a lot when with all the firms we work with is that onboarding is generally one of the biggest bottlenecks impeding them from their ability to grow. And a lot of advisors are actually scared to take on another client because they don't know what that experience is they're going to deliver, and they're actually worried as to what are they going to do for that client. And so I think just watching your experience, right, that initial investment you made in workflows, one, helped you as a solo practitioner, freeing up that cognitive friction. But when it came time to onboard clients faster, you were in the perfect place to really take advantage of that and take hold of that opportunity that COVID presented.
Yeah, actually, I like what you said there, and I'm going to piggyback off that comment. I'm glad you mentioned it. What came to mind for me when you said that was another reason why I guess another ancillary benefit of choosing as a practitioner to invest time in building your workflows is on the financial planning side of things specifically. I think even if you've been an advisor for a long time, maybe with somebody else's practice or in a large company or something, you've had a lot of autonomy to do things the way that you want, but sometimes you're following someone else's procedures for how you do things, right? But when you start your own practice, become independent, you got to start doing things the way that you want to. And so initially, I feel like for a lot of us, there's this exploration of, how do I like building an initial financial plan for somebody? And, whether it's like, what's the order of the topics or the, I guess just the order that I like to take my analysis and research on different components of the client's plan. And when you build when you're building workflows with that, you start to figure out, I felt like it helped me define my philosophy better and my opinion on different financial advisory topics. And, I guess it's like we write so many papers in college. The point of giving us papers to write, hopefully, is that the exercise of researching, learning about a topic, and then having to write an opinion or an analysis on it is what helps us develop a deeper understanding of that thing, right? I'm not saying we always get that out of every, paper we had to write in college, but the equivalent, I think, for me as a practitioner is having to build a workflow. Like for, when I do an investment analysis, what are the main things I think are really important to look at every single time and keep it consistent in quality? And, again, as I started thinking that way, I would go, I'm just a nerd with this sort of thing. I don't go to my doctor and my dentist anymore without thinking about and realizing, they have these workflows that enable them to be very efficient and consistent in their quality of work that they do. Like you said, I recently had a newborn child last month. And so we've had a lot of visits with the doctor throughout my wife's pregnancy. And I was always watching what's the interaction of these different roles in this practice. The nurse that initially meets with us versus our doctor at the very end. And when they're over at the computer clicking through things, what are they doing? It's their equivalent of workflows. I don't know if that's what they call it in the medical world, but I realized there's something to that when you have standard operating procedures in place. It enables different roles to fill their roles and make everyone's time really efficient and optimized.
I think just the direction the industry is going, right? And the way you've built your practice is you're providing a more comprehensive service than ever before to your clients, to a very specific client niche. And you're not just managing their assets anymore, you're helping them with everything under the sun. Like, I know you even help your clients open up high interest savings account, right? So you're really providing a comprehensive service, and to do that efficiently and consistently at scale is one of the only ways to really do that, is to have a systematic approach to how you do that. And Hubly is just one tool that allows you to do that, but I've seen advisors do it really well on Excel or Google Sheets. It's just the idea of how do I manage a very comprehensive human-based service to my clients?
Yeah.
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 So, Justin, I know you've made this transformative investment into your workflows over the last 2 years. And I know when we spoke in the early days, you just wanted to build a lifestyle practice, always imagined just being a solo practitioner. How has your thinking changed, if at all? What does the future of Wealth Mode look like to you?
Yeah, I think that's evolving for all of us, right? I think as I've become really comfortable with, again, building efficient procedures, seeing how you can scale that by hiring new people and plugging them in and, having them almost self-train and working with those workflows. And it's a constant refinement process. I'm not going to pretend like I build a workflow once and then it's there forever. It's like every time you do go through a workflow, there's an opportunity to adjust it and refine it and optimize it a little bit more. But my thinking has changed because I think it's been a really successful experience hiring. I did an intern last spring. I kept him on, hired another intern in August of last year, and they were both working for me. One of them graduated, and then I hired my first. I felt like I was ready to make that jump to like, okay, I'm hiring an employee now, and this isn't someone that's only going to be with me for a few months. So I got to hire the right person, the person who's going to be the right cultural fit long term, going to be able to fit their responsibilities well. And I found, someone who is now my paraplanner, and she has been wonderful in doing a lot of the legwork of building the financial plan so that I can continue to focus on growth and scaling. So I think my new future and the way that's shifted from originally, like, it's just going to be me, no support team, just me and my clients. I've started, I should just say, started to consider how I can scale this to build even multiple teams if I wanted to under the hood of my brand. Because I feel like it would be, I don't know if people here on the call are familiar with the diamond teams concept, but that's where, you can have a head advisor, a head planner with their own diamond team, meaning they have two support financial paraplanners and then their own administrative person. And they can handle, as a team of four, basically an entire book of clients. I've started to see how that is possible when you have really standardized workflows and procedures in place. It doesn't seem like, and there's always going to be some turnover, but I think when you have this part of your practice in place, turnover with a key role doesn't become as big of a hindrance or a starting over point, because so much of the value is in the workflow system that you have. Again, to maybe call it truly just like plug and play, you can get anybody off the street and just here, follow the workflows, now you're a new advisor, isn't obviously an overstatement, but you can, I guess it's not as bad as you think when you have standard operating procedures in place. If you don't have it, someone leaves and all of their experience, all of their knowledge is gone with them, right? But it's really just like a institutional knowledge comes to mind. Does that live outside of the people in your practice? Because it exists as part of the workflows that you have.
And the way we describe it and commonly see with solo practitioners like yourself is, as soon as you ever want to bring on another advisor or team member, if you haven't invested that time, it really starts diluting that client experience that you've been able to create yourself. Like, clients obviously like working with Justin, and so how can you replicate the Justin experience at scale? Is the way we look at it, and trying to guide advisors towards that, the mental model of why workflows are important. And Justin, I know we've spoken about this before, but if there's one piece of advice you could give to other financial advisors who are looking to build a similar practice to yours, or are starting to want to work with younger generation of clientele like you've done really well, what advice would you give them to kind of get started and get their practice moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think to any other colleague of mine who is an advisor or planner, financial planner advisor, it would be the best piece of advice. If yeah, think everything you do. Ask yourself the question: how can I never do this again? Or what can I do so that I never have to do this again? All of us have parts of being practice owners where there's certain tasks and projects that we really enjoy, and it's what makes us click. It's what makes us get up in the morning, is to go do these things. And then there's all the stuff that you really don't enjoy. And if you have decided I'm going to be solo advisor forever, then you are buying into the fact that I have to do all of those things for the rest of my life, some of which I really enjoy and some of which I just don't. And if you can ask, how can I never do this again? That's the approach I take when I decide, man, I didn't really enjoy doing that. I felt like that distracted me or was not fun to do today. Can I put that down in a workflow so that eventually I can have somebody else take over and then never have to do that again? Now, even if it's the stuff you're like, I love doing the portfolio research and building a customized portfolio for a client. I don't think I'll ever get sick of doing that. I would say still ask yourself, how can I never do this again? So that you get it documented. You get training material basically essentially built for that. And so if you're unable to, or if you're like me and you want to take time off for paternity leave, you can have somebody else try to do that. And your thoughts and feelings will change. It does for all of us in our career. And so even if there's something you feel like you want to do forever, if you can outsource it eventually, and like if you get to the point where you're ready to be done doing something in your practice, now you're burnt out doing that and you don't have the energy to like build it out in your workflows and then hand it off. So if you can build it out first, the second you feel sick of doing it, you can then just, hand it off to somebody else. So how can I never do this again? That's my big advice.
Well, alternatively, the other way to look at it is, one, if obviously continue to grow your business, but if you have a business that's really strong operationally, it increases the value of your business. And if there's ever a point where you want to exit, or there's an opportunity to merge or be acquired, they're acquiring a book of business that's a well-oiled machine, and so it drastically increases your value as an organization and as a business.
No, that is so true. That is so true. Really long term, I've told myself, you're always going to want to do this, Justin, right? Like all the way till your 60s, you're just going to want to be an independent financial planner. I don't actually know that. You're right. Things could change. And so if I do have a really well-defined structure to how my practice is, it's going to increase the likelihood of a successful exit plan if that day comes.
And if you just look at the rising acquisitions in the RIA space, it's a big possibility. There's going to be, I think, some more consolidation in the space, or an opportunity for you to even acquire other businesses and bring them underneath your operational structure, right?
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. And then last question for me here, Justin, is, do you have a productivity hack or something that you are a big believer in that you'd want to share with people, that is your cornerstone to being as productive as you are?
Yeah, it's a quirky one, but my quirky productivity hack is something called the Pomodoro Technique. Pomodoro is literally just the Italian word for tomato. So there's some guy, I don't even remember how long ago, he was doing research on like what's really efficient for mental stamina and for the brain. And he just decided like 25 minutes of work or study, if you're like a student, and then like 5-minute break. And then go at it again for another 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And then like every few hours, take a longer break, like a lunch break or, lunch hour. And so I actually use the Pomodoro technique, which is kind of again, it's out there. I'm not the only one who does it. People have figured out the magic of it. I think a lot of like office workers have, where we want to just dive in and like work, 4 hours straight, lunch, 4 hours straight, go home. But I have found myself with so much more mental stamina when I get to the late afternoon. And I think it's because I force myself to do this, like work hard, short breaks in between. And that's the Pomodoro technique. Go check it out.
I love that. And I think it's an interesting philosophy that I've been thinking about a lot. Is as humans, I think, especially as knowledge workers, we're actually quite inefficient. And I think there's going to be, over the next 100 years, we're going to see crazy efficiency gains in how humans work, and how we can further reduce cognitive friction to really do what we do at scale. And so I think that's one quick technique to get started in that direction. So
yeah.
so that being said,
people are chatting. Someone else has heard of this Pomodoro technique, says they do it with their music practice. So again, it's out there, and there's research on how much it increases the efficiency of learning or work. So
awesome. Well, Tessa, I will pass it over to you. And is there any questions from the audience?
Perfect. And Justin, what would you say is your most time-saving workflow?
Ooh, which one does save me the most time? Honestly, a lot of the onboarding stuff. Yeah, I'd have to say, like, just being able to hand off a lot of the onboarding logistical paperwork, financial plan data entry, and being able to have my intern and my paraplanner handle most of that. I feel like now I'm walking into client plans when, like, 80-90% of the data entry is there in the financial planning system. So yeah, onboarding, and it kind of sounds like an everything answer. Honestly, all of them take time. It's true.
It's funny. I love James' comment here. Basically, Louis, he wants you to come visit him in Florida to bring him a Hubley t-shirt. Don't blame him. They're really comfortable. And then he also has a question for you, Justin. And he says, how many workflow views do you have?
Oof. Okay, I'm not trying to freak people out, because one of my philosophies on workflows is, and again, Hubley really like enables this well as a product, as a tech product, but like I like to segment things quite a bit. So like maybe a lot of advisors will just have, let's see, for a lot of advisors, maybe like an investment account, like new investment account workflow, right? And that workflow or that checklist starts at have the client sign the agreement and goes through like go open the account at our custodian and paperwork, and then do the rollover, the transfer, and then set the allocation. And then finally, like that's the whole thing. My style is to segment that probably into like 3 stages. And so that might be 3 separate workflows technically in Hubley, but you might view that as like one process, which is part of the nomenclature of that Hubley uses, is like workflows fit into sets of processes and things like that. So actually, like, to answer the question, number of workflows, I bet I have at least 50. I do.
Oh, so they're asking views. Yeah. They're asking like views, not
workflow
just
views. Oh, I'm so sorry. Workflow views. I'm so sorry, James. Workflow views. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got eight workflow views right now, and there's some overlap between them, but sometimes I want to see things in a slightly different way, and so I'll click on to one view versus the other.
Just to educate the audience, a view in Hubley is basically a grouping of workflows where you can quickly switch between different focuses of your business. So you can quickly go to your onboarding workflows, your check-in workflows, your client projects, and different parts of your practice with a click of a button.
Yeah.
Perfect. I feel like I can almost go back and show them here. This would be.
That's one view, for example.
Right.
Great. And then Hunter had a great question. So they use workflows built out through Excel, but have the tendency to jump off script. So how do you stay disciplined to follow workflows when things get busy and hectic?
Yeah, it is. That's a really, really good question, because, and I'm trying to think about how the shift happened for me, where like I can't work without workflows now. I can't. So like my deciding what to do is logging into Hubley, clicking through the views, and that hub feed thing you see on the side basically tells you like what tasks do you have that had a due date that are now behind. And so I kind of feel like if you've set up your workflows well, that hub feed is like your automatic project manager to say, here's what you're behind on, and I can scan through that and say what's high priority to do and what's not. How do you stay disciplined to follow? How did I make that transition? Like, I just started to force myself to do all my work referencing Hubley first, instead of the inbox. Oh my gosh. Instead of the inbox, like, demanding my attention about what to do, I've switched that where it's Hubley first. And then, this might come down to like time blocking, but I've really tried hard to only look at my inbox at 2 different pockets of time in the day. I'm not perfect at that. I sneak and look at the inbox a little bit more all the time. We all maybe do. I think the more and more that you build out workflows, and the more that you force yourself, anytime you do work, to be following a checklist or a workflow, it'll happen. But that might come down to like what they say about building any new habit. It's going to take, I don't know, what do they say, 3 weeks of really consistent, and then other things say it's really a lot longer than that. I'm going to think on that more, Hunter. And if I feel like I have a really great, better answer, maybe I'll relay that through Hubly.
Great. We have time for some more questions. So Lindsay, oh, sorry, just jumped, was asking, do you have a written operations manual, or is everything in Hubly?
Hubly is my written operations manual because, yeah. So I make extensive use of like the task details on any specific bullet point on any workflow. You can basically write in your expanded operations manual for that step. I do less with text, and this is part of my secret sauce, to be honest, is Loom videos or screen share training videos. If I had to teach another employee how to do a specific step, I would get on a Zoom call with them because my team's virtual and show them over a screen share. Or I could record it before I ever hire anybody, paste that video link into the step, and then just make them watch it because it's the same as if I had to do it live. So so that Hubly and Loom videos are my written operations manual. I have a team handbook and like a compliance handbook like we're all supposed to have, but operations is Hubly. So it's a good question.
Great. And how would you say you keep from being overwhelmed by all of the workflows assigned to you on any given day?
I hired people. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. On any given day, yeah, like I'm definitely feeling that a little bit now because I did take 3 weeks off, 3 to 4 weeks off full for paternity leave. And this week is kind of like me coming back part-time and phasing back in over the course of this month. And so I've hired team members, and I'm trying to teach them how to look through the views more and start to manage that so that they can kind of look at what's maybe in the red, right? Which means you're past due on something, and kind of reset the deadline on that. But to me, whether you feel overwhelmed by all the workflows you have is a good litmus test to whether you should have extra help or not. Because like if you're using a system like this that's really efficient and you're following it well, it can, I think, for a solo advisor, delay the point that they need to hire, because a good, efficient project management system is helping you to be more efficient and tackle more things in less time. But if you're using a good system and you're still feeling like you're falling behind, to me, I think that's just a capacity issue at that point.
Perfect. And we have one more question here before we wrap things up. So Justin, this is for you. So what is your current capacity and or number of clients that you're able to help efficiently?
My current capacity, I'm at 40 ongoing clients. We're adding like 3 or 4 every month right now this year. And I'm going to hire one more paraplanner, and that's a diamond team. And I have a very high touch service. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, as a solo advisor, you can do 100 clients. I think I hear that a lot in this industry. If you're like largely AUM, investment management is kind of the main thing, and you meet with each client once a year, I can see that happening. If you meet with your clients 4 times a year, like me, and advise them on a bunch of things, there's no way I would be able to do even 50, just by myself. So I have like 40 ongoing clients now, several one-time plans. I do a lot of one-time plans. It's just part of what I like to do too. So there's a lot of that going on. My current capacity I'm going to answer in terms of like my diamond team before I have to hire like other head advisors maybe, right? I feel like a good diamond team using Hubly, we could serve like around that 100 client mark.
If you're interested in learning more about Hubly, I would love to have a follow-up conversation. We can talk about your practice and if Hubly is the right solution for you. Either schedule a strategy call with me directly at myhubly.com/strategy call. I've freed up my calendar, schedule a 30-minute session, and I would love to discuss your workflow challenges and hopefully help guide you on what the best course of action is. But most importantly, I want to say thank you, Justin, for today's webinar, and thank you for being a Hubly customer for over the last 2 years. You've been an incredible part of our journey, and also one of the nerdiest people I've ever met with workflows, which I love observing. And so huge kudos to you with all the success you've had with your business, and looking forward to continue supporting you while you grow.
Hey, you bet. Thank you guys. And it's so funny you use that verbiage because I was literally my final statement was gonna be, thanks for nerding out on workflows as much as I like to with me. So
You're very welcome.